My family ignored my promotion celebration. A week later, I received a $2,000 request for Dad's party. I sent one penny and blocked them all. I'm Luka, 31, male, Senior Director of Operations. Saying that still feels surreal. It took me 10 years of grinding, late nights, failed relationships, endless flights, and performance reviews that made me question if I was built for this. But I made it. The company announced my promotion during the all-hands meeting last month. Applause, pats on the back, a handshake from the CEO. They even put my photo in the newsletter under the headline, "From Intern to Senior Leadership, a Story of Dedication." It was everything I'd ever wanted. I remember calling my mom right after. "You're looking at the new senior director," I said, laughing, standing in the parking lot with tears in my eyes. She sounded proud, at least for the first few seconds. Then she asked if I could send Giovanni money for his business idea. That was my first crack of reality in an otherwise perfect day. Still, I wanted to celebrate. I booked a private dining room at an upscale Italian restaurant. Soft lighting, jazz, 5-course menu. I sent invites to my parents, my brother Nico, 27, my cousins, even a few close friends. Everyone RSVP'd yes. My assistant helped me order custom place cards, with their names printed in gold foil. I wanted the night to feel like a thank you. Not for my success, but for the people who'd watched me build it. Except no one showed up. I sat there in that candlelit room for 2 hours, staring at untouched wine glasses, watching the waiters whisper to each other. Texts kept coming in from me, not them. "Hey, everything okay? Running late?" Nothing, just those awful red receipts. They'd seen the messages, just didn't bother to reply. At 10:30, the waiter cleared away the uneaten antipasto and said gently, "Would you like to cancel the rest of the courses, sir?" I nodded, then I sat back down, because I couldn't move. The hum of other people laughing outside the private room sounded like another world I wasn't invited to. I finally walked out around midnight, the maitre d' handing me my untouched cake in a white box. The inscription said, "Congratulations, Luka." I threw it into the passenger seat and just sat there, watching it sweat under the dashboard light until the frosting melted into a blur. The next morning, Nico called. He was the only one. "Sorry, bro," he mumbled. "Everyone got caught up with some family stuff, you know how it is." I didn't. I'd been waiting alone for 5 hours. He offered to grab coffee, as if that could patch a crater. I didn't say it, but something inside me broke that day. The part of me that believed in family loyalty, in shared joy, the kind of pride that makes you want to give back. Because the truth was, I'd been giving for years, just not to myself. A week after that humiliating dinner, I was back at work, pretending everything was fine. You'd think getting promoted would fill you with confidence, but every congratulatory email just reminded me of that empty table. The photos from the announcement were still circulating internally, me smiling under bright lights, surrounded by people who actually showed up. It was surreal how my professional life looked like perfection, while my personal one was quietly rotting. Then came the message that broke whatever patience I had left. My mom texted our family group chat. "Everyone needs to send $2,000 by Friday for Giovanni's retirement party. It's going to be at the same venue Luka used." They said it was beautiful. I just stared at my phone. The same restaurant, the one I sat alone in. My father, Giovanni, the man who didn't even text me congratulations, let alone show up, was apparently getting a lavish send-off funded by me. Again. My sister-in-law sent a thumbs-up emoji. Nico replied, "Sure, I'll transfer mine when Luka sends his." That was the moment the silence inside me turned into something sharp. I wrote back, "You'll have to plan without me. I'm not funding another event." Within minutes, my mom called, her voice dripping with disbelief. "Excuse me? What's gotten into you lately? Your father worked 40 years. He deserves this." "And I didn't deserve anyone showing up for me?" I asked. There was a pause. Then she said, like she was clarifying a grocery list, "Don't make everything about you, Luka. You've always been dramatic." I hung up. That night, I pulled out old bank statements. At first, it was just curiosity, a vague need to understand how much I'd helped them over the years. But as I scrolled, the numbers started stacking like bricks on my chest. Transfers labeled gift, emergency, short-term loan. I kept going. 10 years of bailing them out. Rent, medical bills, tuition for cousins, car repairs, investments that never existed. When I finished, the total made me physically sick. $320,000. 320,000 euros. That's more than my apartment, more than half my savings. I've been paying for their comfort, while thinking it was love. I called Nico. My voice was shaking. "Did you know how much they've taken from me?" He sighed like I was overreacting. "Luka, they needed help. You've always been the successful one. That's what family does." "No," I said, steady this time. "That's what parasites do." He started to protest, but I hung up again. That night, I opened my phone, went to contacts, and blocked every single number with my last name. Mom, Dad, my Uncle Enzo, even Nico. Then I sat on my couch in the dark, feeling the kind of silence that isn't peaceful. It's raw, like the world suddenly got too big and too empty. But under that silence, something else started to stir. Not guilt, not grief, resolve. They'd built a life on my back, and now I was going to take it away, piece by piece. I didn't plan revenge that night. It wasn't some grand cinematic decision. It was quiet. Like finally closing a door you'd been holding open for too long. The next morning, I woke up, made espresso, and for the first time in years, didn't check my family group chat. I'd deleted it. The peace lasted all of 8 hours. By lunchtime, the first email came in. Giovanni, my father, forwarding me a friendly reminder from my mother about the $2,000 for his retirement dinner. No greeting, no acknowledgement, just need confirmation that you'll contribute. Others already have. I didn't respond. By evening, Mom called from a different number, her voice thick with outrage. Luka, what is this nonsense about blocking us? Your father is humiliated. Everyone's talking about how his own son won't celebrate him. I stared at the city skyline outside my apartment, lights flickering in the distance, people living lives untouched by mine. You didn't celebrate me, I said quietly. You didn't even text, she scoffed. Oh, for God's sake, you got a promotion, not a Nobel Prize. That line, so casual, so cruel, did something irreversible to me. I hung up again, calmly this time, then forwarded the email to my lawyer, a friend named Daniela, who'd helped me with property contracts years ago. Can we discuss repayment of personal loans to family? I wrote. She called within the hour. Luka, she said, if you've got proof, we can build a case. Gifts are one thing, but repeated documented transfers, with expectation of repayment, that's different. So I sent everything, the spreadsheets, the bank records, the messages that said, we'll pay you back soon, and just one more month. It took her less than a week to confirm it. I had a legal case. When the letters went out, I half expected silence. Instead, chaos. Mom called from a burner number first. Are you out of your mind? You're suing your own parents? You stopped being parents when you started using me like an ATM, I said. Then came Giovanni. His message was short, full of pride and venom. You were always ungrateful. We raised you to succeed, and this is how you repay us? I didn't reply, but I did forward it to Daniela. The next few weeks were surreal. Their lawyer sent formal denials, mine countered with evidence. Every message, every transfer, every guilt-laden plea now had legal weight. The more they fought, the deeper the hole got. Turns out they'd been moving my money through family accounts, which meant tax fraud, technically. When I found that out, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt cold. Like justice was a glacier, slow and unstoppable. Then Nico called. His number came through because he'd been unblocked for emergencies. Luka, he said softly, Mom's losing it. Dad's threatening to sell the house. They're panicking. Good, I said. He sighed. You don't understand. They'll drag me into this too. You chose them, I reminded him. You ignored me that night. You stood with them. Now you live with it. He didn't argue, just whispered, I'm sorry, before hanging up. By the end of that month, the legal gears were turning. Their accounts were frozen pending investigation. I heard through mutual friends they were selling the family home, the same one I'd helped pay off with gifts. And one night, as I walked home past the restaurant, where I'd once waited alone, I saw it through the glass. Another private dinner, someone else's family cheering, clinking glasses, celebrating success together. For a second it hurt, but then it hit me. I wasn't excluded anymore. I'd simply outgrown the table. The lawsuit didn't just drain them financially, it cracked the illusion they'd built around themselves. Giovanni's colleagues started whispering about the son who sued his own father. My mother, once the queen of social gatherings, stopped posting pictures from their dinner parties altogether. For the first time, their reputation, the thing they valued more than family, more than me, was bleeding in public. It should have made me feel vindicated. Instead, it left me hollow. Because every time I thought about them losing the house, I remembered being 12. Giovanni lifting me onto his shoulders during a soccer match, yelling my name louder than anyone. Or Mom kissing my forehead before my first day of university, saying, You'll make us proud. Maybe they believed that once, before money turned me into their favorite investment. I kept my distance, no calls, no messages, just progress reports from Daniela. She was ruthless, polite but unflinching. They've agreed to partial repayment through asset liquidation, she told me one morning. Expect the first installment within 60 days. They'd already sold the Mercedes and listed the house. Nico told me, through a brief nervous text, that our parents were staying in a rental apartment until things blow over. I didn't respond. Then out of nowhere, he showed up at my office. It was a Thursday. I was in back-to-back meetings when my assistant buzzed in. There's a man here. Says he's your brother. Should I send him in? I hesitated. Yeah, let him in. Nico looked different, thinner, tired, eyes rimmed red. He closed the door behind him and just stood there for a moment, like he didn't know where to start. They're falling apart, Luka, he said finally. Mom cries all day. Dad barely speaks. They're saying you've destroyed the family. I leaned back in my chair. No, I said. I stopped funding the illusion that we were one. He flinched like I'd slapped him. You're not wrong, he admitted quietly. But it's bad. They're talking about selling Dad's watch, Mom's jewelry, everything. That's not my problem anymore, I said, but my voice wavered a little. He ran a hand through his hair. I told them they should have been there for you, that night. I don't know why they didn't come, Luka. I swear I tried. I believed him. Nico had always been softer, the kind who tried to smooth over chaos instead of feeding it. But he was still part of it. He'd let them use me too. I appreciate you coming, I said. But I'm done fixing things. He nodded slowly. I get it. I just, wanted you to know I'm sorry. Then he left. That night, I walked home instead of driving. The air was sharp, cold, and clean, in a way I hadn't felt in years. I passed the same restaurant again, the one where I'd waited alone, only this time I didn't look away. I walked inside. The maitre d' recognized me immediately. Signor Rossi, he said softly. Good to see you again. I smiled faintly. Table for one. I sat in that same private room, ordered a single glass of Barolo, and toasted myself. Not for revenge, not for victory, for survival. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't paying for love. And for the first time, that felt like enough. Hey, Reddit. Didn't think I'd be posting an update, but the last few weeks have been insane. And honestly, kind of revealing. So, remember when I said my family sold the house? Yeah. It happened faster than even Daniela expected. The Rossi family estate, the one I grew up in, where I used to help Giovanni fix the shutters every summer, went up for sale and was gone in under 2 weeks. They sold it under market value, probably just to stop the bleeding. And then, everything went public. Someone, probably one of my cousins who still talks to my mother, leaked the story to a local business gossip page. Prominent family faces legal dispute after son demands repayment of loans. My name was right there in bold. The comments were brutal. Half of them called me cold-hearted, accusing me of abandoning my parents. The other half, cheering me on. Good for him standing up to leeches. For the record, I didn't want any of it to go public. But once it did, I stopped hiding. When a journalist emailed me for a statement, I said, I'm not suing my parents. I'm reclaiming what was taken under the promise of love. That line spread like wildfire. Suddenly, I wasn't just a son. I was a symbol of boundaries. LinkedIn posts, Twitter threads, even a few podcasts. Strangers debated my personal life like it was philosophy. My mother, predictably, couldn't handle the shame. She called Nico crying, saying I'd destroyed the family name. Nico texted me about it, begging me to reconsider, but I just replied, there was never a family name, only my money under yours. He didn't respond after that. And then, the part I wasn't prepared for, came the messages from old friends, people I hadn't spoken to in years. You finally did it, one said. You broke free. Another wrote, I wish I had the guts to do what you did. It was strange hearing that, because from where I was sitting, it didn't feel brave. It felt lonely. Nights were quiet. My phone barely lit up anymore, except for Boyd's work emails and Daniela's case updates. But here's where it turned sweet. 2 weeks after the story broke, I got a letter. Handwritten, no return address. Inside was 50s, crisp, folded, and a short note in shaky handwriting. Luka, this isn't repayment, it's gratitude. You taught me that love without respect is just debt. No signature. I have no idea who sent it. Maybe Nico, maybe someone else in the family. But it felt like closure. The revenge, if that's what you want to call it, wasn't about taking their money. It was about forcing them to see what they'd done. And now, they couldn't pretend anymore. Their world was crumbling, publicly, loudly, and it wasn't because of me. It was because of the truth they'd spent years hiding behind fake smiles and borrowed euros. Still, here's the twist no one saw coming. Nico reached out again, not by text this time, but in person. Showed up outside my building, eyes red, holding a folder. He said, you need to see this. They've been hiding more than you think. And that's when I found out the financial betrayal was just the start. When Nico showed up again, it was late. He looked wrecked, the kind of exhaustion that doesn't come from lack of sleep, but from years of pretending everything's fine when it's not. He handed me a battered blue folder, the kind my father used to keep tax documents in. His voice was low, almost trembling. Dad kept 2 ledgers, he said. One for the accountant, and one for us. I didn't understand at first, then he added, the second one has your money in it. The stuff he didn't tell you about. We sat in my kitchen under the harsh white light, flipping through pages that smelled faintly of smoke and old coffee. Giovanni's handwriting, precise, angry, slanted, filled the columns. Amounts, dates, and notations like loan from L, or gift from L for repairs. But further down the pages were new words, things that made my stomach twist. Luka's bonus. Redirected to joint account. Transfer from Luka, $25,000. Cover mortgage. Not disclosed. Withdrawals. Temporary use from Luka's savings. He'd been dipping into my accounts, quietly, for years, using the joint banking authorization I'd given him back when I was traveling constantly for work. The same authorization he'd promised was, just in case of emergencies. I felt my pulse in my temples. How long have you known? Nico's eyes dropped. I found it after they started packing. I thought maybe he'd explain. But when I asked, he said it was your duty to support the family. He doesn't even think he did anything wrong. I laughed, short, sharp, bitter. Of course he doesn't. It's not theft if they think they own you. Nico reached across the table. You don't have to destroy them completely. I'm not destroying them, I said. They did that themselves. I'm just documenting it. The next morning, I called Daniela. She came over within an hour, flipping through the ledger with a practiced calm that only lawyers can fake. This, she said, tapping one page, changes everything. It proves misuse of authorization. We can escalate to criminal charges if you want. Criminal. The word hung in the air like static. I don't want to see him in prison, I said finally. I just want him to feel it, to understand. Daniela nodded slowly. There are ways to do that. And she was right. 2 weeks later, Giovanni got a visit, not from the police, but from a financial auditor sent by the court. They froze what little was left in his name. His retirement pension, redirected to repay the debt. The car, the furniture, even his precious watch collection, all itemized for liquidation. Mom called Nico, sobbing. He's furious. He says Luka's killing him. No, Nico told her. He's killing himself. When the dust settled, I got a brief typed letter in the mail with Giovanni's signature at the bottom. No apology, no warmth. Just, the accounts are settled. You'll get what you wanted. Congratulations. I didn't frame it. I didn't even keep it. I burned it over the kitchen sink, watching the paper curl into ash. That night, I went for a drive. The city lights blurred through the windshield like streaks of gold and rain. I passed our old house. Dark, empty, stripped of everything that once made it ours. For a moment, I thought about stopping. But what would I even say? Instead, I whispered it to myself. Not as anger, but as truth. You don't owe them anymore. And for the first time, I believed it. It's been 3 months since everything ended. The lawsuit, the audits, the shouting matches, filtered through lawyers. The Rossi family empire, if you could even call it that, collapsed like a paper house in rain. The house sold. The accounts drained. Giovanni and my mother moved into a 1-bedroom flat near Bologna. And me? I finally learned what quiet really sounds like. The first few weeks were strange. The silence wasn't peaceful yet. It was heavy, echoing. I'd walk through my apartment and catch myself checking my phone, half expecting another guilt-ridden message or some frantic call from Nico. But nothing came. The absence became its own kind of presence. Then one night, it did ring. Nico again. He didn't sound angry or desperate this time, just tired. They're different now, he said. Dad doesn't talk much. Mom's trying to volunteer somewhere. They finally sold the last of the jewelry. I think they realized what they did, even if they'll never say it. I didn't know what to say, so I asked the only question that mattered. And you? He laughed softly, but it wasn't bitter this time. I got out too. I'm back in school, grad program in Milan, living off scholarships and instant noodles. But it feels good, feels honest. There was a pause. Then he added, I should have stood up for you sooner, Luka. I was scared to lose them, but they were already lost. I swallowed hard. You did stand up, eventually. That's more than they ever did. For a moment, it felt like the first real conversation we'd had as brothers. No guilt, no manipulation. Just two men trying to rebuild what was salvageable. He told me something else before hanging up. That Mom had framed a photo of us as kids. Me at 10, him at 6, sitting on the steps of the old house, grinning with popsicles in hand. She keeps it on the dresser, Nico said. She looks at it every morning. It didn't erase what she'd done, but it hit me anyway. A strange, painful tenderness that felt like grief and forgiveness all tangled together. After that call, I started letting myself live again. I joined a running group, got back into cooking, hosted dinners, real ones, with friends who showed up. I even went back to that same restaurant, but this time not to sit alone. I booked a table for 5, colleagues, one close friend, and Nico, who came down for the weekend. When he walked in, he looked nervous, glancing around the room like the ghost of that night might still be there. But I smiled, raised my glass, and said, You made it this time? He laughed. Yeah, I wasn't going to miss it again. And for once, the table wasn't empty. The room filled with warmth, real laughter, not the hollow echo of obligation. As I drove home that night, I thought about Giovanni, about how his voice used to fill a room when he talked about legacy. He thought legacy was money, property, power. But sitting there, surrounded by people who were there because they wanted to be, I realized something he never did. Legacy isn't what you leave behind. It's what you stop carrying. I left the weight of them there that night, in that restaurant, where it all began. And when I stepped out into the cool air, I finally felt light. 6 months later, my life feels almost unrecognizable. Not because it's louder or busier, but because it's mine. No strings, no obligations disguised as love. No constant sense that someone is waiting to guilt me out of peace. Just mine. Work has been thriving. The promotion that once felt hollow now actually means something. I lead a team of 20, people who respect me because of who I am, not what they can take from me. I've started mentoring new hires, the kind of nervous interns I used to be, and it's wild watching them light up when they realize they're capable of more than they thought. But the real shift has been inside. The anger burned out long ago, leaving something steadier behind. Clarity. I've learned that love without respect is dependency, and family without empathy is theater. I used to think forgiveness meant letting people back in. Now I know it just means letting go without letting them ruin you twice. A few weeks ago, I got a message from Nico again. He was coming through the city for a research project and wanted to meet for lunch. We sat outside at a cafe near the river, the same river Giovanni used to take us fishing on Sundays when we were kids. Nico looked healthier, happier even. He told me Mom and Dad were managing, living small, quietly, Giovanni's been volunteering at a community workshop, teaching woodworking to teenagers. He doesn't talk about the past, Nico said, but he keeps your picture on his desk. I didn't know what to do with that information. Part of me wanted to rip it out of the frame. Part of me wanted to believe it meant something. Nico smiled, that tired, but genuine kind of smile. You know, he said, I think he finally gets it. What he did, what it cost. We sat there for a while, no drama, no raised voices, just the sound of the river and clinking glasses from the cafe around us. When we stood to leave, Nico hugged me, tight and awkward. Thanks for not cutting me out completely, he murmured. I told him the truth. You were the only one who came back. That night I went home, cooked pasta for one, poured a glass of red, and opened my window to the city hum. No resentment, no ache, just a quiet sort of gratitude. I thought about that night in the restaurant, the empty table, the untouched wine, the cold silence that felt like it would swallow me whole. It used to haunt me. Now I think of it as the moment my life began again. Because sometimes peace doesn't arrive with a grand ending, it slips in quietly after the chaos. A small, steady voice that says, you did the right thing. And for the first time, I believed it completely. I didn't just win, I escaped. And that, not the promotion, not the money, not even the revenge. That was my real victory.